And hello. Today we're going to be playing a Legionary's Life. This is the first time I'm going to have been playing this game on stream and recording it for YouTube. It's not the first time I've played it. I've technically played through what you could probably describe as 2 lives, where I've died, obviously, based on the Hall of Fame here. This is going to be the first time I'm recording it, so I'm not completely new to it. But this is the game. We're basically going to play at least 1 stream's worth, or until we die. So if it goes really, really well and we're still playing at the end of the stream, we'll do another stream. But if we end up dead, that's probably where it's going to go and hit it. So this is sort of it's a game similar to The Long Dark, where you have permadeath in it. We're gonna, for the first run, we're going to be balanced. I might end up doing like mental or physical or something if we do a second run. For the stream here, we'll do my stream name, so we'll call 100. That's why I am on YouTube. On Twitch, I think technically just will call. Because I have done a couple of runs before, I've got a few points to spend. We could spend it on stats, but I think we're probably going to spend it on equipment. So we'll go ahead and upgrade the weapon. We could have more money if we want more money. Yeah, we'll upgrade the weapon. We'll upgrade our plate and our helmet. And then we'll probably spend the last of the points. Well, partially. Let's take an extra point of charisma. We'll spend the rest on money. And this will be how we start. The First War lasted for over 20 years. Conflict had been only a matter of time once the relentless expansion of Rome came close to the huge Carthaginian sphere of influence, a young power propelled by a staggering self-confidence. Rome had most of the Italic Peninsula under its control at the time. On the other side was the Punic city of Carthage, a centuries-old naval colossus, dominating the western Great Sea. An insurmountable gap in power and prestige seemed to divide the 2 cities. Unexpectedly, the Roman Republic emerged victorious. Incomplete as the victory was. Building upon its success, the city's maritime territory grew larger and more secure, while the humiliating conditions, well beyond the actual sins of the defeat, were imposed upon Carthage. Nevertheless, the price was tremendous for both parties. Some say that not even Alexander's conquests devoured so many lives. It all paled in comparison to what was to come. The truce that followed lasted for a generation. You were a child when the situation hovered on the brink of war once again. You still remember the talk in Rome back then, when everybody expected the looming conflict to take place in the distant colonies of Hispania to the west. Now that an attack by sea was nigh impossible. The astonishment when the news reached the city is still fresh in your memory. A bold, not yet 30, Carthaginian general named Hannibal Barca had led an army through the lands of the fierce Gauls and across the mountains to the north. The war was here, in Italia, a few hundred miles from Rome itself. The following years were marked by growing panic as reports of whole armies annihilated by Hannibal kept coming. The Punic general was stronger, smarter than anything Rome had ever faced before. Yet his attempt to turn the Italic allies on the Republic was unsuccessful. Defeating him in a fish battle was beyond the realms of possibility. That much was clear to the Romans. At the same time, he could not lay siege to the capital. Conflict turned into an endless war of attrition. Meanwhile, another war was being fought in faraway Hispania. Crucial to prevent reinforcements from joining Hannibal, about a year ago the Roman legions were soundly defeated and the commander, proconsul Publius Cornelius Scipio, and his brother Gaius were killed. What little remained of the army was now controlling a small patch of land. Even after reinforcements joined the survivors, the situation looked more desperate than ever. When the Centuriate Assembly had appointed a new proconsul, only Scipio's son, a young man still in his 20s, stepped forward. No one else wished to take on such a hopeless assignment. You, on the other hand, had no choice at all. Right after you had come of age, you were enlisted into the freshly raised legion, part of the 2nd, 11,000 strong reinforcements bound to accompany the new proconsul. After a brief training period, you embarked on a long journey to Hispania. Now you have reached your destination and joined what is left of the previous army. Apparently, with the Romans out of the picture, the Carthaginians had divided into 3 large hosts. Each of them at least as big as your current force. They are a long way away from headquarters, committed to securing the whole region. So far away from your home that you can hardly comprehend the distance, with little to no chance of ever seeing your family again, deprived of most of the rights you held as a civilian. You feel strangely calm as you prepare to face the hardships to come. So this is, in many ways, this is a text-based game. So as we play through it, when we approach narrative sections like that for the first time, I'll read the narrative section out just so that everyone can get what's going on. If we end up dying and end up coming through a section again for a second or third or fourth time, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up skipping it in those situations. So that's the one time I'm going to read that. Here we get to one of hopefully many situations where our character is training and preparing for what is to come. So we have a couple different things here. We have miscellaneous that allows us to do things like extra patrol, extra guard, extra coaching, or offer sacrifice. Initially, offer coaching is not really accessible to us because we're not in a position where we could coach people. We may offer sacrifice. We'll come back to that. And we may do extra patrol or extra guard if we get particularly high morale later on. Leisure is how we recover morale and let our training fatigue go down. A couple different options here. This one, in theory, is probably the best for decreasing training fatigue, but it costs money, whereas the other ones are slightly different effects. Okay, this one depends on your charisma. And remember, we've got just barely above average charisma, so maybe that's not the best choice for us. This one's your luck, though again, also partially the ability to change the troops' morale is based on your charisma. But this one, your ability to succeed at the game is based on your intellect. We have the option to buy or sell equipment early on because we just took a bunch of advanced equipment from the first loadout. We're not necessarily going to find anything there, so we're going to want to save a decent amount of money. We have workouts, running, swimming, and gym work that will raise our physical stats. And we have training, which will drive our ability at javelins or in melee. So this is probably where we're going to start off in our training sequence, gaining the most ability, which is we're going to want to very rapidly try to gain some javelin and some combat, some melee skill. And every once in a while, we want to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and play tags. So our ability to gain troop opinion is based on charisma, but our ability to actually sort of win or lose money is random here. And this is one of the things we're going to try to avoid, which is getting over exercise stress. Well, at the same time, we do want to maximize our stat gain, so we're ready for the fight that is ahead of us. We'll offer some sacrifice as a way to pass the time a little bit as well. If that's the wrong one. And we can see our characters, so we got a bunch of different stats, right? We got our attributes. Awareness here is, I think technically our helmet is causing us to have reduced awareness, because it's getting in the way of us seeing stuff. Here's our sword and shield, our melee stats, and then the javelin is our sort of throw things at people stat. Right now, as far as weapons go, we have a sword, so that's the stat we care about. We could technically have pole arms or axes or whatever as well. And every once in a while, you'll get an event like this, which is sort of the thread of life, which is the random events, right? So there's events that will always happen every campaign, and there's events that are somewhat random. In this case, we've got an event which is the winter is especially hard. Without proper equipment, you'll have a hard time dealing with it. So can I don't buy anything, I'll be fine. Or we can buy adequate clothing and sleeping gear for 25 denarii. Well, we have 25 denarii, so we'll buy it. You'll be far from comfortable, but at least you have spared, or should be spared the worst. So we've got 20, basically should avoid getting a bad effect there. That's what that's saying. We're getting fairly close to the point where we're actually going to go into battle. So we're going to let a little over-exertion and stress pop up. Because the worst thing that's going to happen is going to lose a little bit of morale before the battle. You are on guard duty when you hear a strange noise. Aim somewhere to your left. We'll investigate. It's an owl. Bad omen, according to tradition. You go back to your post, unable to shake off the uneasy feeling. So, because we failed our int check after investigating, we lost some morale. Rest of your shift passes without notice. Okay. And there we go. So, time is up. Off to battle we go. And there's various things that are tracked, like our deeds, like what awards we've received, what enemies we've vanquished. And then we have an inventory. And we can see basically our expected weapon skill, weapon effectiveness, melee damage, and that sort of stuff in this step. Obviously, we have ability to upgrade our armor, so our armor covers some of our arms, or some of our groin, or some of our legs. Currently, our armor doesn't do any of that, except what's shown there, right? So we got head armor, we got neck armor, we got torso armor, we've got a shield, and we got a fairly nice sword, honestly. And with decently high morale, we go into battle. The camp bursts into activity as the whole army prepares to leave. You march to the south. It doesn't take long for your destination to become apparent. You are bound for New Carthage, the capital of the Carthaginian colonies here in Hispania. It is a daring move, and very risky. Several days later, you reach your destination. It's at camp not far from the city. According to Camp Talk, the closest enemy army is about 10 days' march from here. A long siege is out of the question. You will have to take New Carthage by storm. You cast a glance at the city walls. Strong stone walls. The thought of fighting your way up there makes your stomach churn. It's not hard to think that you may be looking at the place where your days will end. And if we get unlucky, our days may literally end here. I haven't actually died in the first major battle, but this is first time for everything. The next morning, your maniple is among the first to move out of camp and reach the plain right in front of the city. If what your centurion said is true, the garrison in New Carthage consists of a small mercenary army, possibly 1,000 strong, and of course the city militia. You are taking your place in the battlefield when all of a sudden cries of alarm rise from the ranks. You look ahead with a start. The city gate is wide open. A screaming mass, numbering thousands, leaving the safety of the walls, quickly closing the gap with your partially depleted first line. Judging by their scant equipment, they must be the militia. Enemy commander wouldn't risk his precious mercenaries like this. Blood pounding in your ears. Get ready to receive them, as the first battle of your life engulfs you. When the other side is at the right distance, you prepare to hurl your first javelin. So we're presented a choice here. We can either pick off a specific target, or just throw into the enemy ranks. Obviously, just throwing to the enemy ranks is a bigger target. You're more likely to hit. And thus, more likely to not fail. But it's a little bit less prestigious, because you aren't necessarily tracking if you hit a particular person. Whereas picking a specific target here is going to be easier to fail, but more likely to give us a reward at the beginning of the fight. In this case, because our our character here is fairly green. We're just going to throw it in the enemy ranks, and honestly, we're probably just going to whiff it. We haven't got that much practice yet. We decide to play it safe and hurl our javelin into the general direction of the hostile troops. And I said we were going to whiff it, but apparently we didn't. Our javelin disappears into the ranks of the foe. You can't say what damage it caused, if at all, but it must have produced some confusion at least. So we hit the target. As the other side gets closer and closer, you steel yourself for the incoming fight. So in this case, one-on-one battle, beginning of the fight, and we're both in, I think, technically open ranks, so we're taking no terrain difficulties. We can decide whether we're going to take a defensive posture or an attacking posture. I'm going to take an attacking posture because we still have a javelin. Your character normally has, at any given time, 2 javelins. We just chucked one, we've still got the second one. I'm going to start this fight off by chucking the second javelin. If I didn't have a javelin, I'd taken a defensive posture to gain the defense bonus while moving it. Where taking the aggressive posture here means we're going to have a greater likelihood of hitting with this javelin. And we missed. That was potentially understandable. We're going to try to recover our stance. We took a little bit of stance hit by missing the javelin throw. Our enemy missed one of his swings and has lost a bit of his stance. So we're going to adopt an aggressive stance in response, and we're either going to basically try to, at this point, try to throw him a little bit more stance. So we're either going to hit him with a knock, which is basically bash him with our shield, or we're going to try a feint. I think the feint's a little bit more likely to go through in this situation, so we're going to go with a feint. And it did go through. At this point, I'm going to go for the slightly less likely to succeed, but a little more rewarding knock. Which failed. Okay. He took a breath, so we're going to take the free recover here. And he recovered. And he's fully recovered at this point, so we're going to go back to feinting for a bit, while we're trying to find a opening again to lower his stance. And there we go, there's an opening. We're going to come in with a knock. There we go. So we've pretty much crippled his stance, so we're much, much more likely to hit at this point. So we're going to come in straight for the neck, which is a location, if we bring up the thing here, has double damage to successfully hit. He has no neck armor, so there's no possibility of our attack not doing full damage. So we're not doing damage within the normal damage range. If we fail to hit, which we have a decent possibility of not doing, right? We have a decent possibility of actually hitting. We lose some stance. And again, this is a neck hit, this is double damage. There's a couple of other choices we could do. We could do things like groin hits, which would lower the enemy's stance. We have things like arm hits that would lower the we'll do some fatigue damage in addition to the health damage, and so on and so forth. But we're gonna go straight for the neck. We're gonna try to kill this guy if we can get our beard. Okay, and we failed. He's still got some very, very low stance. So instead of trying to recover mine right now, we're gonna try to still go to our attack. Because I can always try to recover in the break between guys if we actually do manage to kill one. And he's attempting to recover his stance every time. That's why we're not really necessarily getting anything in return. We managed to kill the militiaman, so we're going to take the break between guys to recover. And the next one comes in, and we're basically going to rinse and repeat until the enemy is driven from the field, or we die. Or we get driven from the field. Depends upon the proverbial battle. In this one, I believe they get driven from the field around about round 20. So we probably don't have enough time to kill a second one at the rate that we've been going. See, we're getting a warning. The situation is shifting. You won't be able to keep facing your current enemy for much longer. This guy's about to make a proverbial run for it. And here it is. So, we just about reached a point where we maybe had an opening to start shotting that guy up, but eventually the enemy formation starts breaking apart. Very soon the panic spreads as their wavering turns into a rout. So our character has survived the very first engagement with the enemy troops, and is in fact not just survived but managed to kill one of them. The Carthaginian militia is in disarray. For a brief moment you stare at the bodies scattered across the ground. A few legionnaires, but the vast majority are the militiamen. In the ensuing chaos, you barely have time to think about your first kill. An improvised pursuit is attempted, but your vanguard is stopped at the city gates before it can break in. So we just failed a check, which is defense, weapon, strength, constitution. Basically, probably some version of, do you understand what is going on here, right? So the Centurion beckons to some of your comrades. After a brief talk, they move away from the maniple. Wonder what is going on. So I think what was happening here, right, is that we had a decent melee capability or a bunch of strength and constitution. The Centurion wouldn't have just talked to some of our comrades. They would have talked to us as well. But we failed that check, so the Centurion wasn't interested in us for whatever he's doing. The rest of us will storm the city walls. Many ladders are being propped up against the walls, while a constant shower of missiles is raining down from the battlements. The Centurion promised to share a generous portion of his reward should he manage to be the first man over the wall. So we can do our best to help the Centurion, or we can do our best to stay alive. Again, we're pretty green. We might be on a high after actually killing someone earlier, but we're still pretty green. I think it's not the best idea to do our best. We're going to focus on trying to stay alive. You start climbing alongside the ledge, trying to protect yourself as best as you can. This is a nightmare. No matter how hard you try, you cannot protect yourself from everything. So, even taking the safer option, we failed the check, we took some damage. Decent possibility had we picked the less safe option, we would have failed the check and probably taken more damage. The cacophony is unbearable. Cries from both enemies and allies blend with the thuds of stones and smaller projectiles bouncing all around you. Suddenly the noise begins to dwindle and fade. You can't believe what you're seeing. Hundreds of Roman legionaries are running along the top of the walls, coming from the north. How did they get there? Anyhow, the Punics are melting before them, leaving the battlements unguarded. In the end, your allies reach the gate and open it, letting in the bulk of your legions. I'm going to take a moment to actually sip some tea. Okay, time to continue our assault. You follow your maniple into the city streets. Your orders are very clear. Secure the city by killing everything that meets you in the open. Hopefully, nobody will be so ill-considered. Your thoughts are interrupted when a small number of militiamen stand in your path. So, we were hoping that no one would be so ill-considerate. Apparently that's not the case. There's a militiaman in our way. So we're going to swap to a defensive stance for closing in, because we're out of range weapons. No reason not to give us a defensive advantage giving this gap close mode. Okay, so we closed into the gap. At this point, let's swap to aggressive and start trying to find an opening on this militiaman. A little bit of an opening, not enough yet. Let's continue. A little bit better there. Let's go to a normal feint instead of a deft feint. We're going to blow 50% on his stance. Let's go for a knock. If we can knock him, and we failed, we'd be in a good stance to recover. Or a good stance to attack him. Instead, because he went for recovery, we're going to go for recovery too. Get back up to full. And then go for a normal feint. He's failing his recovery because we're pressuring him, right? We're not giving him time to recover. Okay, got him down to around about 50%. And we're in the middle of storming the city, so there's more legionnaires around, and, well, the enemy is disorganized, so two of our comrades have joined us in the fight. And we managed to get our knockoff. And now the other guy's got really, really low stance. We're not going to give him time to get back into an organized state. We're going to basically chop him up. So, three of us basically, in succession, each hammered a blow into him, and he went down. You look at the militiaman's lifeless body. Quick thoughts flicker through your mind. So we can have elation, we can have pity. Because I have met this choice before, I know the more humanitas, the more humility, the more virtuous of the two choices is to pity the poor militiaman we just killed. Drafted in service. Forced to fight to defend his home. It does ring a bell, because we were drafted too. You wonder about the people waiting for him at home, never to see him come back. And by picking that choice, our virtue has increased. An officer yelling out orders brings you back to the earth with a bump. You move on. You keep marching along the streets, as is custom. Looting is strictly prohibited until the battle is over. Let's stick to the rules and go ahead to the rally point. In theory, if we had low valor there, we could start looting, right? So there's pros and cons to having some degree of virtue. New Carthage is almost conquered, but 500 mercenaries from the garrison are still holding the citadel. The proconsul is looking for volunteers to assault this last bastion. He's throwing in more than doubled Lucia. Those mercenaries are nothing like the militia you have been facing until now. They may not be the enemy's best troops. They wouldn't have been left here if they were, but they're still professional soldiers. Only the most experienced legionnaires are volunteering. No one would blame us if we backed off. Well, we've already been injured in this battle, so we're going to back off. We're not going to risk death so early in the run. We're going to back off. After a brief but intense struggle, because all the legionnaires have gone off, the garrison surrenders. New Carthage has fallen. For the first time in so many years, a change in the tide of war appears within grasp. All is rising with our glorious victory. And, of course, we just stormed the city, so we receive a share of the loot. Our army has obtained an important base of operations. The city's resources will be invaluable for the rest of the campaign. So, needless to say, we have high morale. And having survived the first major campaign in the mission in the game, we've gained some skills by going into battle. And we're back. The training sequence. So it's time to get back to training. The usual. We do some javelin practicing. We do some solo practice. As you get better, solo practice is going to become less and less practicable, and we're going to have to start finding people to spar with. As a sort of warning here, you feel your progress is slowing down, because it is. Tonight you dream about a vaguely familiar place. You are surrounded with olive groves and smoke. This is rising from a large city on the horizon. Close to your left, a path leads down to where exactly you cannot say. We'll move towards the city. A few steps, and you are walking through the city streets. This is a dream sequence, after all. This is Rome. You look around. Your house is not far from here. Corpses are scattered wherever you go. Some you recognize, others you've never seen in your life. A coppery stench is everywhere. In the distance you see your family being brought away in chains. A despair stronger than anything you have ever felt transfixes you. This is... Wake up. It's still dark and all is silent. The nightmare has left us deeply upset. We can't sleep with a wink for the rest of the night. So we lost a little bit of morale in a random event. Who knows? Maybe the other choice would have been the better choice. Because we have such high morale, instead of doing leisure activities, I'm actually going to flop over, and we're going to go ahead and do either extra guard or extra patrol as a way to burn down the over exercise stress. Your sentry is quite the venturical player. It's not rare to see him spend his time playing a game or two with his men, and today is our turn. He patiently waits for your move as the sun casts his shadow across the checkerboard. So we can try our best, or we can try to indulge him by letting him win. We'll try to indulge him by letting him win. You try to lose without making it seem too blatant, and apparently that wasn't the virtuous thing to do, so we've lost the virtue. And he realizes what we're doing and is angry. So that was apparently the wrong choice for what we were doing. We've pissed him off, we lost morale. Okay. Back to training. More and more soldiers in your camp are stricken with fever. And we're no exception. We spend several days fighting the debilitating fever. It takes you some more time to recover, but at least you are fit to resume your activities. So, we saved made the Constitution save and didn't get tied up too long in feeling poor for ourselves. Let's try some sparring with anyone. And apparently we have enough opinion with the troops that we're able to find a sparring partner. We're going to take a little bit of time to offer a sacrifice. We're going to do some guard duty. Yeah, part of guard duty is you're basically burning morale. But there's a morale cap, that there's some degree of, like, let's not completely waste morale. Oh, I suppose extra guard duty, extra patrol, it's maybe not the best way to get rid of the training fatigue. Okay, before we run out of time, we've got loot from the previous battles. Let's seek out potentially buying some new equipment. So we've done some searching. We see there's a pectoral plate here. There's a short chainmail. Can't afford the short chainmail. Short chainmail probably would be an upgrade, though. One of the notable things that I'm seeing immediately here, there's a set of greaves. We're going to buy the set of greaves. We could compare it. We could press the compare button, but I happen to remember we don't have any greaves, so anything is better than nothing. Yes, we want to equip the enemy spot. Another thing we can do is we can compare the helmet and the pectoral plate to our existing thing. So this helmet, how does that compare to our current helmet? This is what we have equipped, so it's 5 better at protecting the head. So when they swing at the head, there's a 5% chance that instead of directly striking a head, they'll strike the helmet instead. The helmet is not better once we account for the fact that we're more likely to get it hit. And it's got a higher awareness penalty, right? So do I value 5% more chance of getting the helmet hit for 1 awareness? In this case, I'm going to say it's not enough of an improvement. We're not going to bother picking it. We can do the same with the pectoral plate. We can check to see if it is a realistic improvement. The material quality is 1 better, and that basically translates into it has 1 more protection value. So this one will at least reduce our damage in the situation with the armor with it. But pectoral plate only really has a cover of about 40%, so it's actually more often than not that the armor isn't going to get hit. So we're going to pass on that as well. We're going to save up for later on. And that was pretty much our choices for things to buy. Could potentially look at this helmet. Helmet's the same thing, basically, as the last one. Okay. In fact, actually, the helmet quality is worse, right? So, more likely for the helmet to get hit, but less likely that the helmet is going to be usefully defending us. And now it's reminding us, hey, If you leave now, the items currently on sale will be lost. And the answer is, well, we just went through all of them. We determined that none of them were worth buying, so we're going to agree. Yes, that's fine. And we have some deeds. We've killed 2 people. And then in inventory, we can see we have, I think, the Reeves. So now when a blow comes at our legs, there's a 35% chance that instead of it just straight up hitting our legs, it hits the greaves that we're now wearing, and that offers us some protection. Well, let's probably finish this off with a little bit of sparring training. There we go. Sadly, we didn't get any better from the last bit of sparring. And looking at the time, with the goal to keep these episodes about 30 to 40 minutes long, this is where I'm going to go ahead and put the first part break in. So this was the first part of a Legionnary's life, and the first part of the stream. If you're watching on YouTube, this stream is going to continue, so there will be more parts up, so the next part, if you're watching on YouTube, will be up tomorrow. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to hang around and take a short moment to rest the voice and to stretch the legs between parts, and then we'll get back to recording the next part. So with that, wish you all the best of luck and a good time. Catch you all in the next part. Bye for now.